So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all of you. And thank you for joining. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. Thank you for joining the AMSET webinar. And we'll be introducing the speaker for today, Dr. Riyad Abu Mughli. But before that, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to just a few words about AMSET. And then also we have, today's webinar is in collaboration with STEM Matters. So we have Professor Samir Iqbal. He will take a minute or two to talk about STEM Matters as well. So with that, I'll just share my presentation here. So the AMSET is basically, it stands for Association of Muslim Scientists, Engineers, and Technology Professionals. So it was established in, I think, 1969 by the founders of this organization. And it has been active since then. And lately, we have added this session that through our webinar series session to reach worldwide audience, and hopefully whoever is watching can benefit from some of the information presented in this forum. So it is registered as a non-profit organization in Indiana. We have a Facebook page, LinkedIn, Twitter, and also Google groups. So anybody can become a member. So if you're interested, you can go into the membership line here. Also, you can go to our website, amsetweb.net, and send us email. These are the executive committee right now. My name is Sohail Anwar, and I'm the president, current president. Professor Fan Badr is the past president. Dr. Tahir Saif is the vice president, Rashid Rabbi, secretary, and we have Asad Muhammad as treasurer, and advisor is Dr. Syed Mushroof Shah. So the web page is maintained by Rashid Rabbi, and career session and fair managed by Asad Muhammad. So what is the purpose for AMSET? So very briefly, we'd like to provide any guidance and assistance to professionals and students to choose their career paths. Also allow some networking opportunities for them, as well as present sessions like this to promote Islamic knowledge and particularly information about topics that are of interest to scientific community. And there could be some issues with ethics in the scientific research, and we'd like to see what are the ethical implications of certain technology, for example, the stem cell research or theory of evolution and things like that, which has some controversy. And where do we stand from a religious perspective as an Islamic community? And so those are the main points, and also reach across cultural boundaries and all other people. And some of the things that we focus on as 3D bioprinting of tissues and organs. What are the ethical implications of that? Climate change, that's related to environment, that's today's topic. Human evolution, technology applications in medicine, AI, and other issues. So I'll skip some of these. Are some of the past sessions at Islam Convention, which we used to hold. We still are holding, actually. We held online session last year, and we'll be doing, inshallah, this year as well. And so if you're interested, any of you who are watching this session, if you're interested in becoming a member or be engaged with AMSET, please send us an email or visit on this website. And also you can, if you want to organize a chapter in your own area, please let us know. We'll be happy to help. Thank you very much. And with this, I will stop sharing and I'll give it to Dr. Samir Iqbal to just say a few words about STEM matters. I think you are muted.
This is exciting to have Dr. in Texas. Say it again.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, so STEM Matters is a nonprofit registered in Texas. We are formed to inspire young students all the way from elementary to graduate school to excel in science, technology, engineering, and environment matters, and of course, mathematics. We have many programs that help students create new projects, new ideas, and use their critical and analytical thinking skills. We are fortunate to have Dr. Abu Mowgli because we are inspired by many people like him. Many scientists, engineers, doctors, educators, and researchers help us mentor and to accomplish our goals. I'm sharing some of the links for STEM Matters as well. We are on Facebook, on YouTube, and there's WhatsApp channel also where you can just subscribe, and we will share the things that we do where we engage, guide, and enable students worldwide to innovate, to invent, and to deliver solutions to our contemporary challenges. So we are developing research and educational programs all over the year to engage students and researchers at local, regional, national, and international levels. So, and just tomorrow we have a program where we will be celebrating the innovative ideas and projects that our students have done. So this is 1 p.m. Central Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So we are starting today, right now at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be 1 hour ahead of it tomorrow. And I'll be happy to share this link for if you want to attend or want to learn more. I'll be sharing this in the chat. And again, we are excited to be here to hear from you and to get a global perspective of how does religion can help us in environmental programs.
Thank you, Samir. Really appreciate it, and thank you in collaborating to organize this session today. So with that, I would like to introduce our speaker today, our esteemed speaker, Dr. Iyad Abu Mowgli. He is the director of Faith for Earth, that is the strategic engagement with faith-based organizations at United Nations Environment Program. His expertise encompasses strategic planning, sustainable development, natural resources management, and knowledge and innovation. And today, so his topic of his talk is role of religions in ecosystem restoration. So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Iyad Abu Mowgli. And so please, floor is yours, Dr. Abu Mowgli. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Dr. Sohail. Thank you, Dr. Samir. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon and good evening from my part. And my appreciation to AMSET and to STEM Matters for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to speak to all of you. I am an engineer by education, so I think I fit very nicely within your association, although not in North America. Today we are celebrating the World Environment Day. As you know, the 5th of June of every year. It is the birth date of the United Nations Environment Program, which was established in 1972. And since 1974, we have been celebrating the World Environment Day. And every year we select an international topic to highlight and talk about and bring the attention of the global community to for engaging people on these important matters. So this year, We have selected the ecosystem restoration, the topic of ecosystem restoration, because of many issues that I will be talking about. And yesterday, in fact, we had the global launch of the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and it was addressed by His Eminence Imam Al-Azhar, His Holiness Pope Francis, the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, and the United Nations Secretary General, and many other dignitaries. So if you allow me, I will share my screen, and then I will speak about the subject. I hope you can see my screen. Can you give me just an indication if it is seen or not? Okay, thank you very much. So, you know, everybody now understands that we are facing multiple crises, and what we call them the triple planetary crises, represented by climate change, nature degradation, and pollution and waste. And we have seen over the past couple of decades increased weather events, whether it is sea level rise or floods or typhoons, or even you know, forest fires and hurricanes, sandstorms hitting major cities and disrupting airports and lives in many countries around the world. Now, as I mentioned, one of the three crises that we are facing is ecosystem degradation. And we have been witnessing, and the science tells us that 1/3 of our ocean and the commercial fish stock is overfished. We have more than 66% of marine ecosystems being degraded or damaged. More than 420 million of hectares of forests have been converted to other uses since 1990. And the case in the rainforest areas, where it is estimated that the area of Switzerland is being chopped up every day to make areas for agriculture rather than forestry. The inland, natural inland and wetlands have been seeing degradation by more than 35%. And if we want to go back to history to the 1700s, it has been more than 87% that has seen a decline in these areas. So the size of the problem is humongous, and ecosystem degradation is currently impacting 4 billion people, so more than 50% of the population of the world. In addition to these three planetary crises, we, of course, all are facing the coronavirus, the pandemic that we are facing, and the causes are most probably due to the zoonotic diseases that are arising from the interactions between humans and wildlife. And this is causing socioeconomic problems around the world. You know, we know markets have been closed, airports were closed, places, even worshiping places were closed for quite some time. So in addition to this and the triple crises, we are facing unprecedented environmental challenges. But what is the cause of all of this? Now, as you know, we are around 7.8 billion people. In maybe 2030, we will be 9 billion people or more. So the population is increasing, thus increasing the demand over natural resources, the demand for food, the demand for water, and demand for land, and so on. So that is one major impact. The other impact is, of course, urbanization. And currently, there are more than 60% of people live in urban areas, requiring housing, requiring road systems, infrastructure, and all of that leads to destruction of natural resources. Of course, industry and the non-sustainable industry that is causing the increase in the levels of CO2, and currently we are more than 420 megatons of CO2 in the atmosphere. And beside all of that, we waste a lot of our food and our resources, more than actually the new figures say that more than 40% of our food is wasted. More than 30% of it is wasted even before it gets to our tables for consumption. And at the same time, 1 in 9 people go to bed hungry, not having access to food resources. So there is an imbalance and inequity all over. So these are very important issues that we need to tackle. Now, why are we doing all of this? Of course, you know that in 2015, world leaders have met, and 193 countries have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, putting emphasis on the prosperity of the people on a livable planet in peace and in partnership. And these 17 goals address issues of poverty, food security, health, but as well as the planetary issues such as energy, water, life above land, life underwater, and so on and so forth. So it is a must that we, the international community, works in tandem and in cooperation and coordination to achieve those goals that would provide a better future for humanity. So are we there? Are we implementing and achieving those sustainable development goals? Well, the science says that we're not moving fast enough to achieve them. Still, some of the indicators used for these sustainable development goals have not been agreed upon. And for others, there's still no methodology for measuring those. And that is, as I mentioned, part of it is the life on land and life underwater and, the water resources and so on. And all of that, of course, constitutes the ecosystem. As I mentioned yesterday, we launched the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration that was agreed by the nations of the world for the decade starting 2021 this year. It has started in January until 2030. So what is the decade and who is managing it? The international community agreed that UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, both entities, both UN entities, take the lead in launching and monitoring and implementing the decade with, of course, all stakeholders and all players who are engaged in this decade. So it is rather a platform for engaging the international community at all levels to achieve the goals of the Rio Conventions being, biodiversity, climate change, or desertification, and the goals of the SDGs. And of course, a website has been established. In addition to my work, my program has come up with a special or specific strategy for engaging faith-based organizations and faith leaders in the implementation of the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and these resources are available on our website. So there have been 3 pathways have been agreed upon to take us into the implementation of the decade. The first one is creating a global movement and generating awareness around the issues related to ecosystem restoration, introducing the ethics, the values, the morality, the spiritual values of or having to deal with ecosystem degradation and restoring it. Also, the second path is bringing the political will by leaders and champions of the world, whether they are political leaders or religious leaders or community leaders from across all sectors, and generate that dialogue among them to achieve the purposes and the vision of the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. And of course, the third one is technical capacity, because you cannot run and implement something without providing the proper knowledge, scientific knowledge and feedback, and do the proper research, and include and integrate the indigenous knowledge, because we know that traditionally people have been living in harmony with nature. So we need to understand how and what are these mechanisms that have been providing the necessary resources to communities without infringing on its sustainability. So in terms of technical capacity building, of course, we will be running some exercises, some trainings and research, but also we will be sharing best practices from around the world and from across sectors. A task force has been established for that purpose, for capturing the good practices and lessons learned, and it will be documented in different forms and provided to those who would need to learn from it. And certainly one document will be on the practices of faith-based organizations and religious leaders in ecosystem restoration and dealing with ecosystems. Indeed, nothing can be run without having a monitoring system to make sure that we are on track. Of course, cutting across the different areas where we work, for example, the terrestrial ecosystems, the aquatic ecosystems, and the socioeconomic drivers of the ecosystem restorations. And we have been involving 270 experts from more than 100 organizations. Scientifically, as we are, the UN is a science-based organization, specifically UNEP, we want to work on the scientific evidence and provide that evidence to whatever we do, which will provide credibility and legitimacy, and of course, monitoring indicators to measure the implementation of the decade. Nothing can run without a financial system. And, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda for Financing Sustainable Development talks about the different approaches to financing sustainable development, but specifically with the leadership of the World Bank, we are working on providing some financing for the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration to achieve its targets. We cannot, of course, do anything without the engagement of young people who are the drivers. They represent more than 70% of the global population. In some areas, it might be more or less, but they are a very strong force taking us to the future that they are making and they will be leading. So as I mentioned, the launch was yesterday with the dignitaries from around the world, and we have engaged more than 50 heads of organizations. And for anybody who's interested to launch an ecosystem campaign, can use our resources that have been made available in different languages, at least the official 6 languages of the UN, but also they are being provided in different languages, and it will give you plenty of resources to know what, as an individual or as an organization, what you can do. Now, what after the launch and what after the World Environment Day? We ask people and organizations to register their activities so we can capture, and that is part of the monitoring and recording and in measuring the impact and whether we are reaching our goals or not. So please join the Decade campaign and register your activities online. Now, as I mentioned, we are facing unprecedented challenges, but that requires also unprecedented approaches and responses. And as you all know, Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve the problems with the same kind of thinking that created the problem. So we have to get out of the box and creatively think about other ways and mechanisms. And from there, we need to do that, but we need to do that ethically. And of course, we all know the fourth industrial revolution that we are currently living in, which is the revolution of technology, the Internet of Things, the artificial intelligence, and so on. But in fact, what we need an ethical revolution or a behavioral revolution that would change our consumption and production patterns and our attitude towards the environment and how we deal with the resources. And we need to do that innovatively and, of course, in collaboration with all stakeholders. Now, why have we considered the faith-based organizations and faith leaders and you know, this sector of the society? Well, I mean, the research says that more than 84%, in fact, believe in something. They associate themselves to a religion. So if you ask 8 out of 10 people, they would say we are either Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and what have you. So they have a point of reference or a standard set of ethical approaches and ethics. We know that faith leaders do exist everywhere. So wherever you go, to any corner of the world, you would find either a priest or an imam or a monk, and they are trustworthy. They are believed in. They lead communities. They provide, you know, approaches that are spiritually connected to the people. And we have seen lately the engagement of faith-based organizations in environmental issues. However, we know that faith organizations have existed for centuries and have been providing socioeconomic support to local communities and to their followers. But most importantly, the one thing that all religions agree on is what we call environmental stewardship, which is called in different manners in different religions, but in essence, it is environmental stewardship, our responsibility towards earth and nature. But in addition to their outreach and their importance in the community, they are important economic power. Currently, the research says that faith institutions own, or they are the 4th largest economic power on earth. So imagine how important economically these religious institutions. They own more than 50% of schools. They own more than 50% of health systems worldwide. They own more than 5% of commercial forests, or 8% of habitable land on Earth. In addition, there are millions and millions and millions of houses of worship around the world. These are buildings. These constitute part of the urban areas. So they consume energy, they produce waste, and they use water, and so on and so forth. So the economic power of faith institutions is humongous and cannot be overlooked. Therefore, in UNEP in 2017, we came up with the strategy for engaging with faith-based organizations, and we launched the Faith for Earth initiative. Our mission is to work with faith leaders and faith organizations by empowering them, engaging them specifically and especially on the policy area, where we engage them in dialogue with decision makers and policy makers who come up with decisions around environmental sustainability. And our vision is to get to a world where we and all creatures live in balance. So the three main goals of our strategy and our Faith for Earth initiative is, the first one is the engagement at all levels, global, regional, local, national, even community level, where we bring faith leaders to dialogue, to inspire, to work with communities in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and environmental sustainability. The second one is to work with the wealth of faith-based organizations in greening them, because organizations, whether they are faith-based or non-faith-based, they invest to make resources to be able to give to charity or build schools and what have you. And we have learned that religious institutions, like all others, they invest, for example, in oil and gas and sometimes environmentally non-sustainable practices. So we want to green those investments, in addition to greening the assets, the buildings, the houses of worship of such organizations. And the third goal is linking the common areas between science and religion. So we want them to be mutually supportive, where we provide the scientific evidence for faith leaders and faith organizations to go and talk with scientific facts when they preach and teach about their spiritual reflections on the environment. And at the same time, we want to bring the spiritual value behind science. So we are bridging the between science and theology or religious studies. Now, what do we aim to achieve? We are launching the Global Faith for Earth Coalition, and the coalition will be constituted of 4 councils. The first one is the Council of Eminent Leaders. So we want to have, Imam al-Azhar, the highest Buddhist figure, the highest Hindu, the highest Jews, Pope Francis, together in one sitting, and to convey one coherent message to all religious followers on the importance of environmental sustainability. And that would be done regularly on issues related to the different areas of environment, whether it is ecosystems, climate change, water, energy, and what have you. The second one is the Council of Youth. As I mentioned, youth are a humongous power that have been leading some activism work. And we need to bring the young faith leaders into this movement and amplify their impact. And also we want to bring the CEOs, the executive directors, the managers of faith-based organizations who are actually implementing projects on the ground, on providing support to local communities. But bringing them here in this setting will bring the environmental sustainability into their work. And the fourth one is the Science Faith Consortium that I talked about, to bring scientists with religious scholars. And we have been working on integrating the religious values, the spiritual and morality into the design of UN environment programs, where if we talk about green economy, for example, we integrate the principles of Islamic finance, for example, or we learn from Islamic finance in implementing green economy policies and so on. And of course, we want to provide the evidence and a knowledge platform for whether scientists or religious or religion followers to look at our policies as related to their beliefs and their values. And the connection of all of these councils will be interconnected, where the Council of Eminent Leaders would provide the wisdom, the theology, the leadership, and the faith and science consortium will provide the scientific evidence and so on. So what have we been doing over the past 3 or 4 years? We have established a huge network. More than 4,000 faith leaders are engaged in our activities. We have accredited more than 50 faith-based organizations, and accreditation is important because it gives a seat for those organizations at the table of decision makers during our United Nations Environment Assembly, which is the General Assembly of UNEP, where policies and decisions are made. And we have launched national programs. We have launched one in India, one in Lebanon, and one in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we are hoping to launch soon one in Ethiopia. And of course, we are considering other countries to launch national programs where we can achieve all the global objectives at the national and local setting. Importantly, as I mentioned, to connect theology, environmental, religious scholarship and beliefs into the work of the United Nations system, and specifically UNEP. So we have integrated the spiritual values into what we call the midterm strategy for UNEP, which will take us into year 2025. So we have come up with a strategy to engage faith leaders and organizations on climate change issues, on nature action, and on chemicals and pollution. And that has never been done before. And it's the first time ever that this happens, and faith and religions are mentioned specifically in a midterm strategy for United Nations Environment Program. Last October, we held a global conference. We called it Faith for Nature, where we brought more than 450 faith leaders, all gathered over 3 days and discussed what can we do, and they issued what we call the Sacred Commitment Declaration, which is available on our website in 8 languages. And basically, they are calling the UN system to integrate the religious values and spiritual values into the environmental sustainability and the multilateral environmental agreements, the work of UNEP, and so on. And luckily, we have Iceland, one of our member states, taking the lead and proposing a UN resolution on the role of faith-based organizations in environmental sustainability and nature restoration, climate change, and so on and so forth. So we hopefully we will be discussing this resolution in February 2022 when the United Nations Environment Assembly meets. Now, as I mentioned, one of the issues that we're working on is creating a knowledge platform, and we have engaged with many educational and knowledge platforms such as the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, such as University of Connecticut, the Parliament of World Religions, and many, many other organizations to provide some coherent knowledge platforms and systems. We ourselves have created more than 250 web pages talking about different subjects. We have launched online courses, what we call MOOCs, the massive online courses. We have issued policy papers and guidelines. There is guideline on greening houses of worship. There's guidelines on biodiversity and many others. Definitely, we believe in intergenerational and gender responsive dialogue, and this is what we have been engaging the different aspects. Yesterday, we had an all-women webinar talking about women leadership on religions and faith and indigenous people on the issue of ecosystem restoration. We have had a number of interactions with young people and the Youth Assembly that is part of the United Nations Environment Program major groups. And as I mentioned, we have launched the national chapters in different countries, engaging with schools, engaging with even political leaders and scientists and engaging them on the ground activities, for example, cleaning rivers and beaches or planting trees or conducting campaigns and so on and so forth. Now, what are the role of faith-based organizations in all of this? And, you know, as I mentioned, they have the mobilization power. Faith leaders and faith organizations can mobilize around their theology, their religious studies, masses of people. So, and they can run campaigns that they do from a spiritual perspective. Advocacy, they can impact legislations, and we know in some countries their constitutions are actually based on religions, and so religion plays a major role in decision-making system. They, as I mentioned, they own more than 50% of the schools at the global level, more than 67% of the schools in Africa. So the educational system is a conducive environment to bring about, you know, the understanding on environmental sustainability and the spiritual value. And of course, there are so many organizations currently providing some on-the-ground projects, for example, providing renewable energy sources for people in remote villages. So this is the strategy for engaging with the ecosystem restoration from a faith perspective, and it is available on our website. Now, so what are the 10 actions that constitute the decade of ecosystem restoration? The first one is a global movement. And as I mentioned, part of it will be the Faith for Earth Coalition, where it provides a movement by faith organizations into achieving the decade. One example is the Sikh group, who has planted 1 million trees last year in 1,820 locations around the world. Another one is financing restoration on the ground. So, as I mentioned, more than 80% of the habitable land is owned by faith-based organizations. So they own assets that they can manage and restore the ecosystems within the areas that they manage, in addition to the houses of worship. Of all of this would require incentives, and the incentives are, you know, and probably you have been hearing about the divestment movement, where some faith organizations, for example, the Association of Muftis of North America, I'm not sure what it is called, in fact, but they have committed to divest from oil and gas, and they have set a target to do so within the next 10 years. Of course, we need leadership. Nothing can work without, proper leaders driving the inspiration and the motivation. And we have seen Pope Francis in Laudato Si. We have seen Patriarch Bartolomeo, the Aga Khan, but also from the Muslim community. We are working. Yesterday, Imam al-Azhar has given a very powerful message on our responsibility from an Islamic perspective on restoring ecosystems and water management, and he addressed many aspects of environmental sustainability. And UNEP is working with more than 12 Muslim scholars and coming up with what we call Al-Mizan, which is a covenant for the earth. And hopefully, inshallah, it will be published very soon within this year, and it will be a powerful sustainable development strategy from an Islamic perspective, where we touch upon every single thing that addresses sustainable development from an Islamic perspective. So we need such a leadership. All of this will change behaviors and will impact the attitude of the people that follow a spiritual belief. Definitely, all of this would require a lot of research, and we have been doing a lot of research on how religions are addressing different issues like climate change from an Islamic perspective, how Islam relates to the corruption on earth and on the sea and air and so on, and that God does not love wasters, and he has commanded us to live in balance with everything that is around us. So all of that will be done in a research and provide some guidance and guiding principles for engagement. Definitely, as I mentioned, all of that requires capacity building, and we have 2 days ago, celebrating the World Environment Day, have celebrated a program that we have launched in India, where more than 100 organizations from India participated in the capacity building training, and 20 faith leaders from India have been assigned as the Faith for Earth counselors, leading faith-based work on environmental issues in India. And of course, we need to provide the guidelines, for example, the houses of worship, where it can be found on our website, and it brings in examples from many religions and many localities all over the world, where and how these organizations and these houses of worship have actually used ecosystem or lived within ecosystem approach and have greened their premises. And we need to prepare, of course, the next generation. And as I mentioned, the Youth Council of the Faith for Earth Coalition is working on bringing the next generation to be the leaders of this decade as we go along. And then, of course, from all of the experiences that are existing or will be generating, we will learn and, of course, convey those lessons learned to other organizations that are engaging with us. And one of the issues that we will be doing is mapping the nature-based solutions being implemented by faith-based organizations. Last year, during the World Environment Day, we have launched with the Vatican the Living Chapel, which was launched in the Botanic Garden of Rome. And this artistic chapel uses recycled material. It recycles the water and promotes plantation of trees in the vicinity of the chapel, but also in the cities that that come and visit, and they take the saplings and plant trees. Today, just 3 or 6 hours ago, we have launched the Hope Cathedral in Norway. The Hope Cathedral is a worship place for all religions. So Muslims go and pray there, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and so on. So it's a space or a place where it brings all religions together to work in harmony, to enjoy coexistence and promote coexistence. But at the same time, the whole structure of the cathedral is built from reclaimed plastic from the oceans. So there is a huge message out there that we can recycle, we can reuse, and we need to stop polluting our oceans and our waters and our lands with plastic and other waste. So we have launched it today, and it's available as a case study for all those who are interested in greening their houses of worship. So this is what I have for you today. I believe I have been on time. I did not take much of your time in speaking to you, but I am happy and willing to discuss and take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abu Moghlid. This was an amazing talk. This is really an eye-opener, and this reminds us that this is, we all are in it. We all have to do it together. So at this stage, I think, Dr. Anwar, how do we deal with questions?
Yeah, so yes, thank you. Thanks again from AMSET for your time and your very valuable and informative talk today. Really appreciate it. So this now floor is open for questions for Dr. Iyad Abu Moghlid, and I think we have basically YouTube chat box open. So anybody watching this, if you have any questions, you can type in your questions in the chat box, and we'll get it to Dr. Abu Moghlid. So before I don't see anything yet, but maybe I'll start with a question. If that's okay.
Please go ahead.
So I know this is a great initiative and very ambitious. Of course, you have multi-year program. So obviously, that will take a lot of effort from everyone. So of all the programs that you have mentioned, you have already started in a few countries. Although I didn't see in, North America there. So what's your plan for US and North America in general?
Well, indeed, we want to go everywhere and be in all continents, and this is exactly what we did in our October conference. That we brought more than around 500 faith leaders, and of course we had people from every continent, from North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Europe, and Asia. And we have partners that are working in North America. For example, the Parliament of World Religions is in America. We have, our friend Imam Safet, who is one of the leaders of North American Muslim scholars. And he is actually a member of Al-Mizan, the covenant that we are coming up to together. And we have communicated with many other American organizations. But of course, I always say, although Muslims are 1.8 billion people around the planet, and so we constitute more than 30% of the population, but activism is not an issue that is practiced apart from charity work. Muslims are known for charity. They give, financial resources, maybe help neighbors and so on. but activism in important global issues, we are not known to be that big. So this is exactly the purpose of Al-Mizan, which will provide, the background for activism by Muslims, and will provide, the meat on the bones where people can engage. So I call upon all Islamic organizations, wherever at the global level and specifically in North America, to come forward, and we're willing to partner with everybody.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I will spread the word around here for the people we know, and hopefully we can get something going here. So I still don't see anything on the chat box. Hopefully, we give it a couple of more minutes. Hopefully, we will see some questions come up. I'll leave it to Samir if you have any questions for Dr. Abu Mughlia or not.
Yeah, so this is something which I've been involved for the last 25 years. We haven't made as much progress as we would have hoped. So going forward, how do you think, is this going to rapidly speed up, given the demographic, the millennials, young people are now more and more? How is it going to, what do you speculate? How is it going to get better, get worse?
Well, definitely we are hoping to get better, especially, taking the figures. For example, when I started this program 3 years ago, we only had 4 or 5 faith organizations accredited to the UN or UNEP specifically. So only 3 or 5 organizations attended those meetings. Currently, we have more than 52 organizations that are faith-based. So in 3 years only, without being known as a global initiative, just starting, there was an opportunity and they jumped at it. So I expect that this will be a huge movement, especially now we have partnered with the Vatican, we are partnering with Al-Azhar, we are launching Al-Mizan, we are launching many programs and projects that will bring more people to be partners in this. We are signing memorandum of understanding with many important faith organizations. So I hope, but also we are working on maximizing our efforts, and especially, as I mentioned, it's the first time we integrate the spiritual values into a mid-term strategy for a UN organization. So it is there, it is the policy, it is the constitution that allows us to play more freely and, of course, bring along partners.
This is really fantastic, Dr. Abu Mughlia. Another aspect which sometimes gets me worried, you see, most of the I come from Pakistan. Now I'm a professor in USA, and many youngsters are in madrasas, in religious schools. We do get in public schools or secular school, if I may call it, we do get some exposure of environmental issues. But would you see your organization making an inroad with religious schools?
Definitely. We have started first at the university level because it's easier, it's more structured, and you can work with the top level. So we have started with Yale University, for example, in the UK, in the US. We have started with Princeton University. There are people now doing their masters on religion and environment. We are working with Ohio State University. We are working with Connecticut University. So we have programs already in partnership that, together we either provide, courses on religion and environment, or they provide their platforms that we can communicate through on religion and the environment. And so many opportunities that that exist there. And I have done so many webinars with university students, linking them actually in Qatar, one of the master's degrees, programs. There we have done 4 webinars with the master's students. So we're moving with whatever capacity that we have, and we're opening up. And I hope that we can bring along many other educational systems, because we want them to be part of our science and religion consortium.
So we have a couple of, I think one question on the chat box of YouTube. It's from Dr. Afan Badr. He is complimenting you. That was very nice, very informative talk, especially related to environment and faith-based organizations. And then he's asking, what about the countries which are faith-based? What is their stand?
Sorry, what are the countries?
The faith-based, I guess, faith-based countries, meaning that who's, like, for example, one example would be Iran, they have, they're faith-based, what kind of stand they have in this kind of initiative that you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is important, and I will not, pinpoint one country and forget the other, but the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They have 58 member states that are, Islamic based, or they have in their constitutions Islam as a religion. And we have been working with them, and specifically with ISISCO, which is the Islamic Scientific and Education and Cultural Organization. And in 2019, during the Council of Environment Ministers of the Islamic countries of those 58 nations, we have launched a strategy linking environment to religion. Again, this is the first time ever that this has ever been done. We are currently working with them on Al-Mizan, which we will be submitting it to their council for adoption. So we work with the intergovernmental organizations to bring such an issue at the institutional level. So, it is important to be integrated within the systems. We are working, for example, with the African Union as well to adopt a similar strategy for the African nations and so on. So this is how we are working on it. We are institutionalizing the connection, because we don't want it to be an initiative and when the funding is over, everything goes away. We want to institutionalize it to continue being a system that people can work on and, through to achieve sustainability.
Thank you for that reply and answer. So I guess I don't see any other questions, but let me ask one more question, and that is, now I think you touched based on this, and so the finances, I guess the finances would, of course, all of the activities will require some resources. So I'm just wondering, what is the, I think you have mentioned it, but maybe if you can elaborate on that a little bit. What is the financial model of this initiative?
Well, we have been working on financing that we have been given by our partners, specifically the government of Norway, for the setup and the operational part of the initiative. Recently, we have established what we call the Faith for Earth Trust Fund, where we are inviting donors, whether they are member states or whether they are faith organizations or philanthropist organizations, to contribute to this. And of course, we're open to considering, what areas those donors, whether conditional or non-conditional donors, want to work on, and of course, highlighting the priorities that are part of the UNEP or the United Nations Environment Program, priority areas where we can contribute to the global campaigns and the global programs on fighting climate change, ecosystem restoration, and fighting pollution as well. So we are open to receive funds, and we're working with funding organizations that will provide sustainability for such a program.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and such a great, ecosystem-based talk. We learned quite a few things, and I hope that our audience also took away a lot of things from your talk. So thank you again, and I hope that your organizations, it expands its activities pretty much all over the world, and hopefully we have a better world because of that. I really appreciate your talk today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure, and of course, please call upon me whenever you need some support, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, and God bless you all, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.